Hello and welcome to this series of short Macmillan videos about pronunciation learning and pronunciation teaching. I'm Adrian Underhill and I'm going to be taking you through the sounds of English and in subsequent videos we'll be looking at words and connected speech. But right now in this series we're going to look at the sounds of English using the British English pronunciation chart. And what I'm going to show you does specifically apply to the sounds of English and how to learn and teach them, but actually much of what I'm going to show you applies to the pronunciation of any language, and you'll see what I mean as we go along. This is particularly intended for teachers, but also students could learn from this. But in particular, I'm thinking that you teachers are also students. I, as a teacher, am a student. We are students of pronunciation. We are learning pronunciation as we go. And by that, I particularly mean this, that it's not enough for teachers, for any teacher, to know the theory of pronunciation. What teachers have to know is where in their mouths they are making the sounds. They have to be able to find the sounds, to know what they're doing. Not in theory, but in the moment, in the actual moment. What am I doing with my tongue? Where are my lips? Is it touching my teeth? Is the air coming out? Is the voice? And so on. Teachers need to know that, because if they know what they're doing, they can then help their students do the same thing. But if it's only in theory, then they're stuck with repetition. And as I'm going to argue, repetition is not a strong way of learning new sounds, because it doesn't get around the grip of the mother tongue sounds. So I'm going to help you to find and to feel the sounds. And this applies to any teacher, native or non-native. All of us need to be better at knowing how and where we produce the sounds. Not for theory, but simply for helping our students. I won't be using technical language in this at all, only the language of the classroom and the language of helping your students. In the first few videos we'll deal with some general but important matters about pronunciation, which I think you'll find very helpful. Then we'll look at vowels and then at consonants. So I hope you'll join me, and I hope you'll enjoy and find perhaps not only very interesting but even quite liberating these ideas on learning new pronunciations. Well, you may have met the chart before, the pronunciation chart, but I'm going to introduce you anyway. The thing about this is that we need all the sounds of a language, in this case English, right from the beginning. You can have a syllabus for grammar and a syllabus for vocabulary, and it more or less works. But you can't have a syllabus for sounds. You need everything from the word go. Luckily, there aren't very many sounds, about 44 in British English. So we need to learn them all at once and in one context. So a chart is a good way of doing that. And here is a chart. And the particular thing about this chart is that all the sounds are laid out in their relationship to each other. All sounds affect each other. All sounds that are neighbours on the chart are neighbours in the mouth. If they're neighbours in the mouth, they're neighbours in some way on the chart. The chart contains information about how the sounds are made. And it's divided into the vowels, diphthongs here and monophthongs there, and the consonants along the bottom. And in the next video, I will describe in more detail the layout of the chart, why the sounds are put where they're put. So this chart here shows the sounds of British English, And of course different people have different accents, so they will put slightly different values onto the sounds. What I would like to describe to you now is the layout of this chart, why it's laid out the way that it is. Because everything is here, all the sounds are here, all the sounds that you need are here for words and for connected speech. Everything's here. The whole syllabus is here. It's all in one gestalt, one page. Here are the vowels along the top, consonants along the bottom. In particular, here are the monophthongs, that means just one vowel sound. Here is the front of the mouth, the back of the mouth, bottom of the mouth, top of the mouth. So it's kind of geographical. Here are the top teeth and the bottom teeth at the front of the mouth. This is like the mouth. Here's the teeth, top, bottom. And here's the tongue. Tongue front, tongue moving back. Open the mouth a bit, tongue front, tongue moving back. Open the mouth a bit more, tongue front, tongue moving back. And approximately those are the vowel sounds that you get. And we're going to study that, helping both you and thereafter your students to understand what they're doing here, so they can begin to have some control of how to experiment, how to make different sounds outside their native speaker language sounds. Over here are the diphthongs. That means to say there are two vowels, and these are organized by the second sound. So here is the sound sound I, sound U. So these diphthongs are organized by the second sound. Down here we've got the consonants, and again front to back for the stop sounds, the sounds where you stop and then release it, t, p, and so on. In the second row, the friction sounds, again from front of the mouth to back of the mouth. These are the sounds that you make by friction and can continue, like s and f, and so on. And in the third row we have the nasals, and then we have some assorted bits and pieces, with here the semivowels, the two semivowels, here the three linking sounds in connected speech, here our old friends l and r, and here the kind of odd one out. So that is all of the sounds of British English, and they are set on there in relation to each other. What they indicate is how the sounds are made. So the chart contains that information, both for students and for teachers. Now, here's something that I find very helpful when working with teachers and with students. Helpful in order to help other people to think about pronunciation more clearly. And it's this. I divide pronunciation into three levels. I just call them level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is sounds. For example, here are the sounds. This is level 1. Level 1 is working at the level of individual sounds. E, I, U, P, S, T. Level 2 is words. So we put the sounds together into words, we connect them up, we join them, we have to add stress, so we emphasize some bits and not other bits. The result is a word. So that's level 2. Sounds come together, we add stress, we get words. Level 3 is when we put the words together to make connected speech. And again, the words kind of join at the edges. There are certain gaps here and there. There's a kind of speaker's rhythm, and that overall there is an intonation. And that's level 3. So level 1, the individual sounds. Level 2, the sounds join together to make words. Level 3, the words join together to make connected speech. Connected speech is what we're trying to learn in the end. But in order to get there, we need to look both at the word level and at the individual sound level. After examining and working at those levels, we need to put everything back together to get a bit of level 3 speech. That's the aim. But we do need level 1 and level 2. And that's what we're going to be looking at. Now, here is a very simple fact, but it's very useful. for all of us when we are teaching or learning pronunciation. And if we look at the chart, then we can say that these are the vowels, and what's distinctive about vowels is that there is no obstruction to the flow of air out through the mouth. There's a shape in the mouth, a shape of the lips, a shape of the tongue, but the air flows through, the voice is sounded, and there's no obstruction, just a shape. Consonants, on the other hand, nearly all of them have some kind of obstruction, some way of making it more difficult for the air to come out of the mouth. So, for example, in the case of B, you can see my lips joined together, two lips, B, so the two lips come together and for a moment stop the air, B, and then it's released. So, in this case, the obstruction comes from two lips, top and bottom lip. Or if we take this sound, again, it's two lips that make the obstruction, but this time they don't open, the air comes out through the nose instead. My point is this, that for all of these consonants there is some way of obstructing the sound. To obstruct the sound, to obstruct the flow of air, requires two surfaces. And those two surfaces can be found inside the mouth, and we can sense them and feel them. This means that we can locate how a consonant is made fairly easily, whereas a vowel is kind of more slippery. It's not quite so clear where it's made because it's a shape. And this is something, therefore, that we'll be addressing as we study these sounds and think about how to say them and how to help other people to say them. Hello. In this video, I want to talk about the physicality of pronunciation, which for me is the most important single discovery that I've made about teaching and learning pronunciation. And I'll say something about this now and also in the following video. When we're babies, we play with lots of sounds. We explore the musculature of the whole pronunciation system, which is more or less from here up to here. Multiple sets of muscles. And as babies we learn to make many sounds, and many of them we can let go of because we only in the end need the sounds of mother tongue, and they remain and they get automatized and the baby's attention goes on to learning other things. So we are left with a kind of grip, automatized sounds which grip the mouth such that we can only really move around in the phonetic set of the mother tongue. Even if we try to talk nonsense, we end up using the sounds of our mother tongue. And at the other end, the ear also is in the same grip and tends to hear sounds, even new sounds, within the categories of the mother tongue. So there's a grip, the mother tongue grip. It's like a neurology, and it has two ends, an ear and a mouth, and they're both part of the same thing. So, in teaching pronunciation then, we are trying to deal with this physicality. We're trying to deal with the grip of the mother tongue. And this means that we need to help our students to find the muscles that are going to make the difference, to find the muscles that will liberate them from the grip of the mother tongue. They've got to rediscover the muscles that make the difference. That's the point. That's the physicality. And in that sense, pronunciation teaching is rather like teaching dance, helping students to get in touch with their physicality and the muscles that will enable them to make new movements. So pronunciation is in a way more like teaching dance than like teaching vocabulary and grammar, which are kind of cognitive activities. Pronunciation isn't. It's a physical activity. And in the next video, I'll say a bit more about how we can go about this. Hello. In the last video I introduced the idea of the physicality of pronunciation, teaching and learning. And this is something I introduce with my own learners right from the very beginning. And the way that I do that is to divide the muscles that are going to be needed into what I call muscle buttons. and I help the students to discover these muscle buttons. Button number 1 is the lips. Button number 2 is the movement of the tongue backwards and forwards. Button number 3 is the movement of the jaw up and down. Button number 4 is the voice, introducing the voice or taking it out so that you have voiced and unvoiced sounds. And I find that even with those 4 buttons, as the students rediscover what it is to move those 4 at will, not by habit, they're already doing that, but moving them at will, they are then able to let go and move outside of the grip of their mother tongue. Then they're in the zone of discovering new sounds. And it's very exciting, but it's also very simple. And in order to keep it simple, I use this term of muscle buttons. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Hello. What variety of English pronunciation should we teach? For me, the short answer to that is teach the pronunciation that you use. Teach your pronunciation in any way. You can't help it. So teach your pronunciation, whatever it is. At the same time, be aware of other pronunciations, other accents, and introduce your students to those, expose them to those other accents. And all of this goes for native or non-native teachers. Whichever you are, teach your pronunciation and introduce them to other varieties. In many ways, from my perspective, native and non-native teachers are kind of in the same boat because, and you may disagree with me here, what I'm going to say is that neither native nor non-native teachers really know what they're doing in their mouth and throat. They may know from theory, from the books that they've read, but they don't really sense and feel at the time of speaking what is going on inside. Some of you may, I may not be talking about all of you, but this is my generalization. And furthermore, if we did know, if we were aware at the time of teaching, at the time of speaking, exactly how we were making a sound inside, this would give us much more information as to what to do with a particular student. It would tell us about the problem that they're facing and what they need to do to solve it. In other words, which muscle button to be pressing. So, from my perspective, this is all to do with the physicality of pronunciation and the need to help our learners and to help ourselves first to make contact with the muscles that make the difference. And that's native or non-native teachers. I don't find that there is any difference in this respect. Hello. So the question I'd like to look at in this short video is, how can I, the teacher, demonstrate and say sounds for the students? And how can the students, in this case you at the moment, say and practice them? Now, I, the teacher, can give a sound without saying it. For example, I can mime it. I can mime it like this. But I can also gesture to make that mime a little clearer. So I go like, or I could mime a sound like this. Or I could gesture as well to make it perhaps a little clearer. So mime and gesture are two approaches. They usually go together. The second thing, of course, I can do is to say it. E and oo. And later I'll show some other ways in which the teacher can put new sounds into circulation. Now, how can the student receive that and what can they do about it? Well, one thing, of course, is that they can say the sound aloud as best they can, listening to themselves and then adjusting it if they have found the muscle buttons to adjust it with. The second thing they can do is to whisper it. That gives a different sensation and puts attention in a different part of the musculature. And the third thing they can do is not even to whisper it, but just to find the position like this. And when you find the position of a sound, it's kind of strange because you're used to making a sound. But if you find a position on its own, it tells you something else about what you're doing. It makes you look inside. And the fourth thing that the student can do, which is very powerful, and I'm going to invite you to do this quite often, is not to move any muscles at all, but to hear the sound in the inner ear. So if I say the sound E, I then invite the student to carry on hearing that in my voice in the inner ear. This works for sounds and words and short bits of connected speech. The student holds, suspends, and listens several times in the inner ear, without the distortion of the musculature, just the inner ear holding it. It's a very good way of practicing, and we'll talk more about that.